Hello, welcome back to Flute Salad. Space Babies.
Baby-sized space babies.
Space Babies was an episode of Doctor Who. In fact, it was, well, I was going to say the latest, technically the second latest, because they released 2 episodes at the same time for some reason. But it was the series opener to Series 14 or Series 1 or whatever the hell it's called these days of Doctor Who. And it's definitely an episode of Doctor Who. I watched this episode on Saturday when it first came out, and it's now Tuesday, and I haven't seen it since, so you're going to have to forgive me for messing up things I'm going to talk about, but I want to kind of talk about it and give it a little bit of a review. So for starters, this episode is very silly. Well, actually, I guess we should say, for starters, I really didn't like this. At all, not one tiny bit. It was awful. So, to give a little rundown of the story, well, it opens up exactly where the Christmas special ended off, and I actually really enjoyed the Christmas special with the Goblin song, Go Banger, absolute W.
We got a baby, we can feast. We can die in 3 days at least.
We love the Goblin song. It picks up where that left off straight away. Ruby walks into the TARDIS like, oh, and then the Doctor's like, oh yeah, this and that. I'm the Doctor. I'm like really old and Time Lord or whatever. Anyways, they land on a spaceship in the future, and it turns out to be a baby farm for a planet, which is actually a really interesting idea. And that, you know, if there's a underpopulation or they need to colonize the planet or whatever, farm babies. That's an interesting idea. I'm on board with that idea. That's an interesting idea that can be explored a lot. It doesn't go anywhere at all. So they discover it's a baby farm, and then they literally have the exact same scene where the Doctor's like, give me your phone, you can now phone your mum, which is the exact same thing that happened in The End of the World, which was the second episode of Series 1 in 2005. And that's literally an exact copy and paste scene. This baby comes in like a chair, and it's got like a weird mouth sync. It talks, but its mouth moves, but it's really quite disturbing because it's quite clearly just a very confused baby that they've put a mouth on. That's interesting. And this baby leads them to this room, and there's like 15 other babies, and then they can all talk for some reason, and then it's revealed that they're babies for some reason, but they're actually like 6 years old.
So you lot grew up, but you stayed the same size. Baby-sized space babies.
And then there's like a computer which the Doctor's speaking to. Oh, I've completely forgotten there's a monster in this. Now that says, oh, there's a monster. They land and they come across this big scary monster, and they run away and go upstairs, and that's when they discover they're on a baby farm. And then they're like, oh, we're scared of the bogeyman or whatever. And then they're like, and then the Doctor talks to this robot called Nanny who's looking after the children. It's like a robotic voice that looks after the babies. And then it's like, God's sake, go to this room or whatever. So he goes to this room, and it turns out it's a person. And then this person reveals to them that everyone that worked there left the baby farm because of some reason. I can't remember why. Something about it being shut down or not being, or it being opened, or the government do something like it got closed down, but the government, there's a law that there's not, you can't turn off the baby farms. They're just growing babies forever alone. It's a bit weird. Anyways, like all this stuff is a really interesting idea, and it could be delved into, and it's just not. The entire plot is, oh yeah, these people left, so now there's weird babies that can talk. And then they're like, oh well, what is this monster? Where did this monster come from? So they go down, they discover the monster is actually a baby made from snot, because it's the bogeyman. So the computer's like, babies need stories, they need to be scared of the bogeyman. It took it literally and made a man out of bogies, which is a thing. the woman tries to throw it out of an airlock, and then the Doctor gets all angry because it's the only one of his kind. Which, again, that's a really good scene. That is a really, really nice scene when it's trying to get pulled out of the airlock and it's hanging on, and the Doctor's at the fucking door, and he's like, no, and he's like really worried, and then he's like, go stop her, and Ruby's like, what, but I'm not leaving you, and he's like, go, like, really, really nice. See, that is really good. It's just a shame the rest can't be said for the rest of the episode. They close the airlock. Oh wow, the day is saved because there was actually no threat at all. But then, because the space station, we're like, well, the space station's stuck. We're not going to be able to get down to that planet down there. But all of the nappies from the babies over the last 6 years have been collected in this room, which has built up a load of pressure from like gas, and then they open the door and then just like propel the space station to the planet using like a big fart, and then it just ends. It's, well, this was very much marketed and broadcasted as the next jumping on point for Doctor Who. If you haven't seen Doctor Who before, start here. It's a brand new start. It's season 1, episode 1. Brand new start. Reboot, basically, of the entire show. How do we start? Baby fart makes spaceship move and a man made out of bogies. I mean, I've been a Doctor Who fan my entire life. I don't know if you can see it. They're from when I was a kid. Those wall stickers, there's a Dalek. That one there, it's got Dalek on. They're from when I was a kid. I've had them my entire life. I remember watching The End of Time, which came out, The End of Time Part 2, 1st of January 2010. Look at me. But that was over 14 years ago. I still had those exact stickers. Because one of them's got the 10th Doctor, David Tennant on it. I'm spoiling it there, but the camera angle makes you can't see it. Anyways, one of them has David Tennant on it. And he was obviously the Doctor that generated at the end of time. I was 6 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. So I was an age when it came out. I was very young. But I remember I never made it to the end of that episode because he said, I don't want to go. And I was like, ah! And I started crying. I ran upstairs and I'm just sitting. There was actually, I have moved them around since, but they were on this wall over here. I was crying my eyes out. You know, I've watched this show since, I've got a school report from when I was 4 that says that I really like Doctor Who, and my teacher then said I need to expand my horizons from Doctor Who. So I have watched this show my entire life. I went back, I've watched all of the classic Who apart from a lot of Second Doctor stories because they really do bore me. But I've watched all of classic Doctor Who apart from a lot of Second Doctor stuff. I've listened to some Big Finish. I've watched all of them. I've seen everything. And I hate this episode. As I said, there's some really interesting concepts in the story. The baby farm existing, it being shut down by the government, but there being a law so you can't stop the baby farms. When the bogeyman's trying to get flushed out, or is getting flushed out of the airlock almost, and the Doctor's freaking out because he's the only one of his kind. Now, it reminded me actually quite a lot of The Beast Below with like the Star Well, and it's the only one of its kind. And the Doctor gets, very angry about like it potentially dying or something.
You can do some other way.
Nobody talk to me. Nobody.
Who has anything to say to me today?
Reminded me very much of that, but if it was worse. I honestly don't know if I'm ever going to rewatch this story. Ever. It's got interesting concepts and interesting ideas. It's got awful pacing because the entire episode is just people running up and down corridors. The monster it's supposed to be scary, but they keep going, this scary monster, this scary monster, this scary monster, which makes it not scary, and then you discover it's just a man made out of bogies. Upon a rewatch, it's going to be even less scary. The babies were annoying. I mean, I'm the number one baby hater anyways, but Jesus Christ, they were so annoying. There's a nice scene actually where, because they're supposed to be 6 but they're still like a baby, one of them says to the Doctor like, did we grow up wrong? Is that why everyone left us? And he has a really nice moment where he talks to them because of the timeless child and stuff, and he says, I was left when I was a kid. I was left. And Ruby's kind of like the same thing. She was left when she was a baby. Nobody can grow up wrong. And that's a really nice scene. I love that scene. It's just a shame the babies are so fucking annoying because fucking Eric goes off and he's like, I'm going to be brave. even goes to Arnold's like, what are you doing? What is this, bro? And then they find him because he's hiding in a cupboard, and they find him because he shit himself, and they smell his shit to get to him. Like, what the fuck am I watching? Am I a fan of it? Absolutely not. Does it have interesting ideas? Absolutely. Ncuti Gatwa, who's the Doctor, and Millie Gibson, who plays Ruby Sunday, both incredible. They were fantastic in this episode. Amazing performance from them. But as a series opener, as a reboot, technically, opener, it was definitely something. If you haven't watched Doctor Who, well, I'm not sure why you'd be watching this, but if you've not watched Doctor Who, do not start here, okay? There's a few jumping on points. I wouldn't recommend starting with Classic Who, as somebody who's watched all of Classic Who twice on all of the episodes, and then more on others. But I've seen everything at least twice, apart from a lot of Second Doctor stories, as I said. I would not recommend starting with Classic Doctor Who. I'd say either start with Series 1, 2005, with the episode Rose, but have, it's very 2000s, it's very 2005, it's very cheesy. But it's not cheesy in a bad way, like Space Babies. It's just very, very cheesy. You do have a two-parter, which isn't that great. Aliens in London, World War III, that's a two-part episode. That's not too great, but the rest of Series 1, absolutely phenomenal. Stuff like Empty Child, Dr. Dances, even The End of the World. I love The End of the World, I know a lot of people don't. I love Unquieted Dead, I know a lot of people don't. Father's Day's incredible. There are some fantastic episodes there, so that's a good jumping on point. Another good jumping on point would be Series 5, Episode 1, The 11th Hour. That is a very good jumping on point as well. Start with the 11th Doctor. Rusty Davies, who's the current showrunner, was the showrunner from 2005 to 10. He just left at that point. Stephen Moffat had started writing. So that's also a really, really good jumping on point. I wouldn't say start with Jodie Whittaker's era. I would not recommend starting there because, well, it's awful. Don't start there. So if you're going to start 2005 or start 2010. Don't start here. Don't start with the 60th specials because they rely you having knowledge on something from 2008. So don't start with them. Start either in 2010 or 2005. Okay, and another thing actually I've just remembered. Sorry, I was going to end this. Every single time, oh my god. The amount of times the word baby or babies is said in this episode, and every single time the Doctor goes, babies, space babies. And then he goes, babies, space babies, babies, space babies. Every single time he says babies and then corrects it with space babies. Can you... I get it, they're babies in space. Repeating the fucking line space babies at least 20 times in the span of 45 minutes is not comedy. That doesn't work. It's not funny. It's just irritating.
Baby size. Space babies.
Anyways, never watch Space Babies. It's a piece of shit. Bye!